Hey everyone, I'm Peter Morton, Senior Pastor of the River Christian Church, and I'm joined today by Alan Platt, who is the visionary leader of Doxa Church and of the CityChangers movement. Alan will be joining us here in September for the CityChangers conference, and we're very much looking forward to hearing what he has to share. Thanks so much for joining me today, Alan.
What a joy. Always a privilege to speak to you guys, and really excited about the fact that we're heading your way.
Yeah, and it's not too far away until the conference, just over a month to go now.
Yeah, you're right. It's I wanted to say a very long flight all the way to New Zealand, because right now I am in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So I am going to hop all the way down Brazil, South Africa, Australia, and then hit New Zealand. So looking forward.
Awesome. We're definitely looking forward to having you. And this isn't your first time to New Zealand, is it? You've been here at least once before?
Oh, I've been there a few times, of which I suppose the most notable time was for the World Cup.
Yes.
And obviously not a very good memory for the South Africans, but it was great. It was great.
Yeah. It was, a much better memory for the Kiwis, I think.
Of course.
Yeah, and actually, I did happen to see that there was something that you did get up to while you were here. I don't know if you can see this picture here. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that. Your action sports.
Oh my goodness, my sins are really being revealed. I was there with two American friends, and they saw the tower, heard about the fact that you could do the jump of what's called the skywalk, yes. I think. And the one challenged the other American and said, "Would you do it?" And he said, "I'd do it if Alan does it." Oh, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, I have to do this. I can't say no." And so we did it. It was fun. It was fantastic. And there's the evidence.
That's awesome.
And I'm still alive.
Are you usually taken to jumping off tall structures, or was that a bit of a first for you?
That was my second, but it's not necessarily a pastime.
Fantastic. Hey, I was wondering if you could just fill us in a little bit about some of your history. How did you begin in ministry, and how did Doxa start back in the day?
Peter, I grew up as a young Christian boy in a wonderful Christian home. Always knew I wanted to go work for God. Didn't know exactly how that would pan out. Started as a youth pastor, was that for 8.5 years, and then through a divine set of circumstances, I landed up taking responsibility for a church that had gone through crisis, but had incredible promise in our nation. And at a very young age, I had the privilege of leading that church. In a very short space of time, we saw the grace of God upon the ministry. And within 2 years, we had grown extensively. As a matter of fact, 1,300 people joined the church in 2 years. Wow. From a base of about 370, which was just incredible. But it was in the reflection after 2 years about what God had done that God deeply, deeply spoke to me and the leadership that we had to reposition ourselves to no longer be a church for the church, but be a church for the community. Awesome. And we didn't really know what that meant. We went on a journey for 2 years trying to figure out what that meant. And when we thought we had an idea in 1996, we relaunched the church as Doxa. And obviously from there, the journey has been phenomenal. God has just been so good to us.
And the name of the church, Doxa?
Yes, the glory of God. It's the mixing of two languages, Greek and Latin. Of course, that made the purists mad. Yep. But we knew that that was part of our calling, that we would be instrumental in bringing people from different frames of reference together in a new understanding of the mission of God on the planet.
That's great. And from there, what then prompted you to start the CityChangers movement? how did that all begin?
Well, Doxa went on a journey where we started with multi-site in one city. It grew significantly to 12 campuses serving 30,000 people in the city of Pretoria. And then we sensed God speak to us to export to 12 significant cities in the world. And so we started planting churches in different parts of the world. In that process, we had many friends that gravitated towards us and said, could we sit down with you and talk through what you're doing and just the strategy and the principles that are driving the engagement within community, the taking hands with other churches within geographical spaces, cities where we were involved in. And that caused us to create initially what we just called dialogue forums, and we called them CityChangers dialogue forums. We did not think of creating a movement. We just wanted another space that wasn't selling the model of Doxa, but was creating opportunity for dialogue with like-minded people, people of the same heart that were, kind of grappling with what does this look like in our context. And that led evolutionary to a process that now is called the CityChangers movement, but it really is still just that. It's a space in which people come together to consider, in terms of their own context, what is God saying to them, and we're just asking the key and fundamental questions.
And obviously you're traveling very widely these days, based there in Florida, but traveling and meeting now with leaders in countries all over the world. What are some of the things that you're seeing as those leaders are beginning to dialogue, and what are you finding as you're traveling around the world?
Peter, this truly is a global conversation, and we are privileged to be in that space right now, to dialogue with people from I'd say every single nation on the earth is actually grappling with God bringing the Christian leaders and the Christian voice together, and them asking the question, how can we leverage this unity in the mission of God? So it's not just unity for unity's sake, it's unity for mission. And, one of the things that we've really seen emerge is the church coming together, leaders coming together and asking the question, how can we collaborate together? Not just in terms of shared activity, but in terms of shared outcomes. In other words, not just what can we do together, but what can we truly change if we did it together? So what are the outcomes? What are the goals? And specifically in three primary areas: spiritual, social, and cultural. So we're challenging people all over the world to ask three questions and say, could you answer what is the spiritual lostness, the spiritual climate in your region? And what needs to change spiritually? Secondly, what is the pain of your region? What are the evident things that are hurting the community that if the church came together, we could effectively make a difference in? And then thirdly, what is the brokenness of that region? In other words, what is culturally not aligned to the purposes of God, the kingdom of God? And if we can answer these three things, what is the lostness, what is the pain, and what is the brokenness, and rally the church around these three big questions, we could see significant movement for the kingdom in the next season.
And so also too, something that we're seeing across the world at the moment is this, I guess, a real understanding of the priesthood of all believers, that every single Christian has their part to play in their sphere of influence to advance the kingdom of God. And every single Christian has a vital role to play in that whole expansion of the kingdom of God in a city and in a region. How important do you see that kind of thinking and that kind of mindset to city transformation?
Peter, you're touching the heart of the matter. If we in any way think that we're going to affect communities, the key to that process is the individual Christ follower that feels he's challenged, empowered, and mobilized to be able to engage within his sphere of influence. If we talk about the church is not an institution. I mean, the institution facilitates the real church, who are people and individuals. And people need to come to this realization. As a matter of fact, one of the key things that we challenge people and pastors with is to understand that people are not coming to the church for a program. They are the program.
Amen. Yeah.
And if they become the program, well, that changes the way we even engage them. So people no longer come to the church then just to be encouraged and blessed. They come to be equipped and mobilized.
Yeah.
And that places a whole new definition on ministry, on engagement going forward. And we're trusting God that this is what we can stimulate. As we have these dialogues, specifically in Auckland, in this particular next season, this will be part of the dialogue. How can we equip leaders to be more effective to equip their people?
Yeah, that's exciting. So good. So what would be a standout story for you, Alan, as you've traveled around and as you've engaged with different leaders and different parts of the world? You would have heard a lot of different stories about what God is doing as churches are coming together, and then that united church is reaching out to be a blessing in the city. What are some of the standout, or what would be one standout story for you that you have heard?
Peter, actually, one of the beautiful things that's now starting to happen is we have some people that are now starting to document some of these stories, because for many years, beautiful things have happened, but we've never really celebrated them. We've never really, brought them to the fore as incredible references of kingdom engagement. One of the very recent events here, if I think about a standout story, was the shooting at the Fort Lauderdale airport. You might have heard about this. Some guy at the carousel where people were getting their luggage just started shooting randomly, killed a number of people, but many people were hurt and were taken up into hospital. And so as we were unifying in the early stages of our journey here, this happened, this crisis happened. And crisis always creates opportunity for the church. We should never waste a good crisis. And that crisis happened, and I think it was the Thursday, we quickly rallied a bunch of leaders in the area and said, what are we going to do? And of course, we reached out with the serving and just taking water and supplies and things to the people. But then one guy had an idea. He said, a lot of these people are now having expenses that they probably cannot fund themselves, and their family are coming in, they're taken up in hospital. So cutting a long story short, we connected with the relevant authorities. They helped us to aggregate and curate what was necessary to help these people that were affected. And they came up with a number, $36,000 was necessary. And so we went back to the churches and said, if any of you can make a contribution. And of course, there was such a generous response that we gathered $68,000 just over that weekend. Went back and said, what? We can help everybody and we can assist them. And what was interesting is how the media then picked up on this. And we often refer to this as the Church United coming out party. because the media got hold of it. The Sun Centennial, big newspaper here in the Miami area, they flagged it, front page news. We went on a television station, and suddenly the church was seen as an instrument of good in this region. So much negative publicity had been part of the church's narrative, with a few leaders that had moral failures in this region. And suddenly it just lifted the spirits of the church and the people of the community, saying the church is doing good. And so beautiful things are happening through the church in the community, and God is giving us grace to be able to celebrate that.
Yeah, look, that's fantastic. And we're very much looking forward to hearing some more of those stories and some of the principles and things that you've seen along this journey when you join us in September.
Yeah.
It's going to be so good. So one last question, which is really going to be at the forefront of everyone's minds, and this is so vital. You know, there is a rugby test that's taking place on that Saturday night of CityChangers, and it's just happens to be a New Zealand versus South African test. Yeah, just wondering, you know, who do you think is going to win, Alan?
Oh, Peter. I mean, is that a rhetorical question? You know, many nations play rugby, but the All Blacks win the games. That's the way it is. And
Awesome.
we've made peace with that.
Oh, very good. Well, I think you would have won your way into every Kiwi's heart with that statement, my friend. Hey, look, we're so looking forward to September. Bless you. Thank you so much for your time today, Alan. And look, please, if you are interested in CityChangers, then jump up on the CityChangers New Zealand website, citychangers.org.nz, and you can register online for the conference from the 15th to the 16th of September. We'd love to see you there. God bless you.